This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley Smith.
Welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith, reporting from the National Association of Farm Broadcasting Convention in Kansas City. In today's show, later on, we'll be visiting with Ken Layden of agmarket.net for a check of the closing market prices. But first, I'm visiting with Greg McBride of Allendale for an update on the latest weather and crop conditions in South America. Riley Smith, Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, on the phone right now with Greg McBride of Allendale as we take a look at the conditions down in South America. First off, Greg, what's the latest weather patterns for Brazil and Argentina?
Well, it looks very similar over the next 2 weeks or so. There are some areas that are on the drier side, but for the most part, they continue to get about 7/10 to sort of 3/4 of an inch of rain per week, which is about half of what they would normally get. But that is still rain falling, so that is still keeping them in business here. There's no concerns necessarily at this point. It's too early to have that conversation about loss of production or anything like that, because they are still getting rain, and because the main development time that we're watching for beans especially comes in at the very end of December and into the beginning of January for Brazil, and it's actually in January and February, early February for Argentina. So as far as right now, getting about half the rain they normally do, and there's not as much worry, and it doesn't look like we have to really push any panic buttons just yet.
And then as far as planting progress goes in Brazil, where are they at right now, and what do we usually see them at this time of year?
Yeah, soybean planting sitting at 70% complete. They are behind last year where they were at 78%, but they're pretty well in line with the 5-year average of 72. On the corn side of things, they are. This is the first crop of corn. It's 83% planted, just slightly behind the 5-year average of 87, and well behind last year's 90%. So they are still moving along, but just slightly behind where they need to be.
And then for Argentina, how is their progress as well? I know they're generally a little bit behind.
Yeah, they are. They're planting corn and beans right now. So they've really just started planting beans in the last few weeks here. Soybeans are 15% done. Last year they were at 25%, but the 5-year average puts them at 18. On the corn side of things, they're a little bit further along here. That's 41% complete when the 5-year average is at 38. So just slightly ahead of last year's 40 and slightly ahead of the 5-year.
All right, Greg, lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to get in touch with Allendale for more marketing information, how can they do that?
Give us a call at 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
And that's the latest on the conditions in South America. You can find that full story at iowaagnet.com. We will go ahead and take a look at the closing markets now with Ken Layden of agmarket.net. Kenan, it's been an interesting day or an interesting week in the ag marketplace. What do we see going on in the grains today?
Yeah, disappointing day in the grains after some, great movement in the markets earlier this week. Corn and soybeans were both down. Soy oil and soybeans were probably the leaders. Wheat was down also. There was an announcement by the current presidential administration that the biofuel tax credit that imports of foreign oils are receiving, or products which can be turned into oils, may be delayed 1 to 2 years, which would make that used cooking oil, which was such an issue, in the previous year, still available for tax credit. So that was thought to have been taken out of the market in some of the nomenclature of bills earlier in the year, but it seems as if that may be delayed 1 to 2 years, putting more competition in for soy oil products to be used in biofuels from exported or imported, product. So really pressured soybeans to the downside today, and soy oil, corn followed suit, down 7 cents in a lot of the contracts, testing that 50-day average. And your wheat contracts, besides Minneapolis, were down about 10 cents also. So just kind of a reversal day of some of the good market action that the market has been seeing.
And Ken and I know we've been focusing a lot on the trade deal with China right now and figuring out how exactly those details are going to work. We saw some smaller purchases made earlier this week, but it's still going to be tough to hit that proposed 12 million metric ton agreement for the end of the year, right?
Yeah, and I would add, Riley, that's all. It has been iterated that it's 12 million by the end of the year. The stand time frame, and it's unclear if any of that has been signed. There was a statement from Trump, yesterday saying that he will put pressure on China to continue buying beans. Some of the maybe uplift we saw earlier, but you know, to move that 12 million metric tons, if you have a soybean tracker of how much they bought, it's nowhere near close to that. Even with the positive news that China is buying beans and some of the news we've seen this week that there is cargoes and boats being loaded and much more than before. So good news is that China is in the market right now. Bad news is some of like you said, the when does it get shipped? How much is it? That remains unclear. It was a framework, and I don't know if any of it's been signed. And then to top that off, some Brazil values for certain months are cheaper than US beans. So add some competition to exports for soybeans.
All right, Ken, and then on the livestock side of things, how did cattle and hogs trade today?
Yeah, not any, at least on the cattle front, not good news there either. Feeders and live cattle were both down, being pressured most of the day. Um, we haven't made new lows in the contracts, but you know, disappointing market action. No big news headlines that I've seen so far in those two markets, but these cattle markets have been moving up and down. And I was close positive on the day, $1 to $1 plus up across all of the active contracts.
All right, Ken, lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to get in touch with the team at agmarket.net and learn more, how can they do that?
Yeah, just check us out on the web at eggmarket.net.
All right, Ken, thanks again for the time as always, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Riley.
That again was Ken and Layden of agmarket.net. We'll take a look at how the numbers close through the market window at iowaagnet.com. At the close, December corn down 7 even at 429 3/4. January soybeans down 17 1/4 at 1136 1/4. December soybean meal down 8.10 at 318.90. Soybean oil down $1.07 at 51.10. Chicago wheat down 9 3/4 at 536 3/4. Kansas City hard red winter wheat down 10 3/4 at 515 1/2. Minneapolis spring wheat down 1 1/2 at 581 1/4. December oats up 2 1/4 at 311 1/2. On the Merc, December live cattle down 372 at 216.30. January feeders down 460 at 321.45. December lean hogs up 95 cents at 78.85. Pork cutout went unchanged at 93.57. And December Class 3 milk down 32 cents at 16.64. That's been a check in the markets here on Ag Matters PM, and that also brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our daily ag news content on our website at iowaagnet.com. From the National Association Farm Broadcasting Convention in Kansas City, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.